What's up, everyone? Welcome to the third episode of Grasping Neurology, and today we're introducing the concept of memory and specifically delineating it from recall. I'm really excited to introduce this topic as a whole because this is one of the greatest ways that Go Superbrain can help you improve your life, just because this is sheerly something that everyone runs into at some point. We need to start with, obviously, what is memory and what's the difference between memory and recall? What most people think memory is actually recall. Recall is your ability to logically go back and grasp something that's been stored as a memory. Memory is information itself stored within a neuron, and we'll talk about that within a second or two. But you gotta go back and watch both learning videos if you want this video to really hit home and to start improving your recall as well as your memory. The first delineation we need to make is memory is learning, recall is a skill and an opportunity in a time and place. They are different from a lingual usage perspective as well as what they are. Recall is a verb, whereas memory is a lot closer to a noun, especially in the biological world. So let's start there. What is memory from a science and just real life perspective? We have a neuron, right? And we've referenced long-term potentiation, so we really know that these neurons aren't super stagnant. They actually do some cool stuff. Now, they all logically have different jobs. We also know that what goes through a neuron to communicate to another one, or a muscle or whatever have you, is not just electricity. It's information coupled with electricity. So now imagine a neuron or an employee whose job it is to store information. This is a memory neuron, and we have many different types of them. The hippocampus is typically seen as the hub for this, but obviously there are some memories that can be stored anywhere within the brain realistically. It's the single neuron that went through long-term potentiation at some point, which is coupled with a specific information that needed to be stored. Now, based on the type of long-term potentiation it went through, how intense it was, the information, the environment, etc., is going to be the key to access the memory itself. And that gets us into recall. Recall is like having those keys in your pocket, and it's how quickly you can select the right key to open the door for the memory. Now, within recall, we kind of have two separate categories to look at. There's obviously many types of memories, and you've probably been exposed to some of the names like incidental and all these types of memories, but I don't think the names necessarily help us too much. I split the category in half. We have quick access memories, and we have memories that need a flow state to be accessed. What that means is quick access memories are going to be based on the sensory environment and whether it's something that you interact with or something that interacts with you. That acute change and novel response coupled with the neurochemistry we briefly talked about with dopamine and we'll add to later is going to come together and say, hey, this neuron's on now. Remember me? This is the information I stored. Flow state memories are different. These are things that need to be accessed by a specific synergistic amount of brain chemistry together. What that means is maybe you learned this certain fact with your favorite song on, and maybe it was a certain temperature and all that stuff. Not that you actively remember those things, but it's part of making that neuron red hot for long-term potentiation. And you did that song 3 or 4 times over and had the best study session in your life perhaps. And now, if it's not a little cold and at night with that perfect song on, it's hard for you to get that same brain flow. Maybe you have white noise getting in the way, which is going to get us to our first tip on the day. But essentially, you need to mimic the state you were in from a brain standpoint, not necessarily an environmental standpoint, which is cool, to access the memory. So now, If you're dealing with brain fog, and specific types of brain fog we'll get into at some point soon, but maybe your brain fog is related to slow recall or incorrect recall or delayed recall of the memories you want. What I would start with is logically attenuating white noise. More than likely, the reason you can't recall this memory is because there's improper brain chemistry inhibiting the messages being sent to that neuron with enough intensity. They're being outcompeted by whatever other crap is going on. So meditate or reduce white noise through some type of meditative like activity. And secondly, begin to prioritize, ideally handwritten to make it a multi-cortical environment, what you want to do, remember, or achieve. Make it real, do it immediately after your meditative style practice. Give yourself a couple deep breaths to transition into what you want to do next. And I promise that small little thing will make a more than marginal change in your ability to recall correctly.